Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to Reality Bytes. It's the panel show where we get to we bring the panelists together to discuss a hot topic, an engaging topic, and Sean has come up with another great one. We're going to get to it momentarily, but a few of us just recently came back from SKO in Madrid. Tim, you were certainly among the representatives from the RB team. How was it for you, Tim? How was Madrid?
So as a longtime enterprise IT guy, SKO was new to me, but that was number 10, and we've had them all over the world. I think the one that stands out the most is Malta. Everybody remembers SKO in Malta, but this one in Madrid, Tom, it didn't disappoint. Great mix of motivation and new product announcements and networking with people across the world. So it was a really cool time.
It was really cool, and I think we were propping up the same bar on the last night, Tim, both drinking old fashions, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, there was a little consumption going on.
A little bit of that, and everybody came back with what I'm calling the Madrid plague.
So you know what? I said this was number 10 for me, and I always come home sick. And mine with asthma, mine lasts for 8 weeks. I can't shake it. This time I had a little sniffle, and it was gone in a day. I lucked out.
Lucked out too, but I mean, about 15, 20 colleagues far from lucked out on their backs. So shout out to them all listening. We hope you're feeling better, and shout out to Megan, who is among their number and isn't joining us today. But Sean, Oriana, and Dina are with us, Tim. And Sean, you came up with a fantastic theme for today's discussion, which is that of distraction. I was going to say destruction, which would have been the wrong word. Distraction, right? So let's delve into it momentarily and its specific relevance to the digital workplace. But before we do, I wonder if we could just do a quick round robin. I'm fascinated to know what everyone's personal kryptonite is when it comes to distraction. Be honest, whatever it is, tell me. Sean, since you brought the topic to the table, you have to go first, I'm afraid.
Yeah, for sure. My phone. I think we're all addicted to our phones. And I have to actually physically put it away from me. So, and that's and that doesn't even work all the time. So, yeah, that's my kryptonite.
Where do you put it?
The other side of the apartment, as far as I can go.
Okay, I understand that. Phones are fairly distracting inventions. There's no question of it. Dina, you're up next on my list. What's your kryptonite?
I'll echo Sean's distraction, but it's the Apple Watch for me. It's the notifications on Apple Watch. So it's great. I can keep the phone away, but I'm still wearing the watch. So now I'm back to old-fashioned watch wearing. And I'm only wearing my Apple Watch when I need to on activities and such. But to get the distractions off of the way, I put my phone on work mode and take off the watch.
Got it. Okay, I've never worn one of those watches. I can only imagine. Tim, what's your kryptonite, mate?
I got to say the same thing. And you know what, Dina? I just stopped charging my phone or my Apple Watch. I got tired of it telling me when to stand up and when to walk, and enough already. So outside of that, it's the phone. I used to look at it as I'm a great multitasker. I can do email. I can text my son while I'm in the middle of a meeting, and you know what? Our brains aren't built that way. Ariana Huffington taught us that in one of our pods, right? Put the phone away, especially at night. Put it to bed in another room. But it definitely the distraction is the phone.
Yes, she made little. Her company made little telephone sleeping bags.
Yeah, Thrive
mobile sleeping bags, which are a very cute idea. Okay, it all reminds me a little bit of that. I think there's some old sort of Jewish wisdom about if you're tempted by a weakness, you have to build a fence around it, and if that fence doesn't work, you got to build another fence. I think that's what we're coming down to. But personally, I'm going to add, what it's become for me, and it might be a symptom of having worked remotely now for so long. It's other people. I find it so hard to work when there's actual real life people around nowadays. Like I like communicating on Teams and such like, and staying in touch with people throughout the day. But once I'm actually in real proximity to another person, could be my wife, could be in the office, poof, hardest thing in the world is to
Yeah,
get some
you're
work in.
right. When I'm in the office, that happens to me too. I'm lucky. I there's nobody here to distract me, but office is definitely less productive.
One last go, Oriana, since you're back with us.
Okay, I'm trying my third microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Perfect. We can
Third
hear
time
you.
the charm.
Okay, so over to you then, Oriana, on your kryptonite.
Yeah, so I actually definitely share all of your experiences. I keep my phone on with all of the notifications turned off at all times, so my phone doesn't distract me at all, which is really nice. I also have like do not disturb mode. Um, and I also get distracted really easily by people around me. Unfortunately, the bit that I can't unplug is Teams. So when people message me on Teams, I just completely forget everything that I'm doing and zoom in on whatever conversation is happening there, whatever people are asking me. So I definitely know that I'm very easily distracted by people, and I've tried to minimize that as much as possible, but I find it really hard to unplug from Teams.
That's a really good point, Ariana, because I do the same thing with Teams. But what also gets me is my email will ding when I get something in the inbox, and it's like Pavlov's dog. As soon as I hear the ding, I go over to email and see what they have to say,
Yes,
and it completely breaks the
it's
rhythm.
terrible.
I have to change that.
Yeah, so I turned that off for email, but I can't turn it off for Teams because I do feel like it's useful to be able to have that kind of more synchronous
Yeah.
communication. But there are times where I do turn it off. Like if I do need to block off a few hours for focus work, I sometimes do close Teams because otherwise I don't focus.
Okay, this is all a very real portrait of what Sean in his proposal refers to as digital overload. Everybody, apart from in my case, which is like an IRL overload. Okay, but other than that, Sean, how would you further define digital overload and the dynamic as you see it with another nice phrase in your proposal, which was that of deep focus.
Yeah, I think it's definitely there's almost like a hierarchy of different apps that we respond to. So like I feel the same way, Tim. If I get something through email, I want to go to that channel because it seems more official. But then at the same time, a Teams message or whatever, if you have Slack or one of those other tools,
Yep.
it seems very personal. Like it's something that can be done quicker, I suppose. So I don't know how to balance that, but when I meant by deep focus work, it's usually when anybody's creating something, a presentation, a written document, it's kind of pulling things together. That is to me the most sensitive time where you cannot be distracted or interrupted because I get completely thrown off, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, at least 20, 30 minutes to get back to where I was. So I don't know exactly if IT is a silver bullet to fixing that. They can certainly assist with certain features, but it is a constant struggle.
I want to build off of what Sean said because I think for a lot of the people who are listening to our podcast, and I know for myself, it's not just creating things, but also data analysis. One of the big challenges there is we're often comparing information from a bunch of different sources, right? We have a problem, we're trying to maybe find the source of that problem, and that already requires holding a bunch of different stuff in your head. And that's where an interruption can be really bad because you can't just go back to what's on the screen because you also have to remember, oh, I have to look at this second tab, or oh, I'm comparing this to something else that I know about. I think that's one of the places where distractions are particularly pernicious.
And I'll build on that too, Ariana, because it just happened to me 30 minutes ago. At my advanced age, when I get distracted, I forget what I was doing. So I just happened to me. I was posting something on social. I got the email ding. I read the email, and then I sat here for 5 minutes saying, "What was I doing?" So it can be tough switching back and forth.
I was just worried you were going to say you were at the post office, Tim. One for old time's sake, a
Yep.
Tim Age joke. Dina, with regards to all of these factors, and when we think about IT's place in this context, first of all, do you think it's part of IT's remit or expanding remit to minimize distraction for the digital workforce? Or is it just about enabling productivity tools and you leave the rest of the employees themselves?
how about a little bit of everything, right? So IT can provide some alternatives or setting blocks, enabling do not disturb globally. Whether it would have a little bit of settings, as in switch off team messages or put them on snooze when you get the alerts of the emails. And like Tim, whenever I see a message, I have to go and read it on my mail or a message on Teams. So that distracts me a lot. But we can just put in like a snooze, like do not alert me in my focus time that you are getting dedicated, etc. Because you want to be in flow. You want to be in a flow state of mind where you want to be focused on, like Sean was mentioning earlier, a little bit of slides that you're building or a content that you're working on. And we can have some different aspects to do. So IT can help assign days or hours of different work blocks or patches of work where you can focus on something in specific, or even a themed kind of thing, which actually looks very nice. If you try and sketch out your whole week in a theme kind of thing, it would maybe allow you to have less amounts of distractions and maybe have distraction time in between of the times where you're going to check your mail, check your Slack, check your Teams, etc., etc. So having this educated aspect, I think we can provide it from a technology perspective, but we need to empower people and employees at the end of the day to actually have this balance out. You have the technology, you have the tools to do it, but you need to learn how to better focus and how to better less distract yourself and rely on the fact that we are like humans. At the end of the day, we are not made to multitask. We need to be focusing on what we need. And I think I read that somewhere at some point that we take around 40 minutes to get back to the flow state that you get to do. So how many 40 minutes would you have in a day to get back to the actual task? So minimizing the distractions really is helpful, which is going to be a good productivity metric if you want to measure people's productivity eventually, right?
Absolutely. And IT is also occasionally or generally a bit guilty of also creating more distractions, right? And that's what we've been hearing. Not just on the matter of introducing more and more technology into our lives, which is not really IT's doing, right? So much as it's being a sort of local conduit of it. But in terms of perhaps, introducing excessive number of applications, overcomplicating tools, unnecessary alerts, software sprawl, etc.
Yeah, it's the mix of both. Like technology is going to keep on evolving. We'll keep on having new applications and new ways of working every single day, every single minute actually now. But we need to have the control not within only IT. IT could be a service provider at the end of the day, but then also could be an enabler where we can recommend to the users or the customers what to use at what time, or direct them like we do in Nextlink with some engage campaigns at some certain hours, etc. So we can try and see that and do it. But again, it will go back to the employee at the end of the day to choose not to go through and chase the distractions and have the optimization and focus on the flow aspect. Whether you can do that by reducing repetitive or manual tasks through AI or automation and such things in the background, you can.
Absolutely. And Tim, when we think about applications specifically, how much time do you think we're losing to sort of context switching between apps? And what are the effective kind of strategies for cutting that down in the digital workplace from IT?
A lot of that is almost outside of at least IT operations control, because the application suite that an employee needs to use is defined by the business, not by IT. So, in my experience, I'd seen people context switching just to make the applications work. In between two applications, their primary need was to have Notepad so that they could copy and paste information between the two applications. It's so inefficient. But I kind of put together a bit of a, it's not a top 10 list, it's 9. I'll hit you with a couple of things. Other than DEX allowing you to get rid of the shoot yourself in the foot distractions, right? The technology disruptions that we induce on our employees all the time. There are logical things that we can do. One is, and I've done it on mine, but IT can do it across the enterprise. Change the Outlook default for meetings to 25 minutes instead of 30, or 50 minutes instead of 60, and give yourself some time between meetings so that you can regain your thoughts. That way you don't have to context switch in the middle of a meeting. You know you've got a little bit of a break in between. That was a big change for me. And on email, We used to say this at Hartford all the time. It just came back to me. What's the SLA on an email reply? There is no SLA, right? Check email once a day. Shut off the ding, shut off the little vibration on your phone, and say, I'm checking email at the end of the day between 4 and 5. And other than that, don't look at it. Set up maintenance windows. IT can make sure they don't impact employees when they only maintain devices in a certain window. There's other things you can do, like single sign-on, password synchronization, standard password managers. Um, I like IT taking a step back and just looking at the logical things that they can do. And I found there's one other point I think to make, Tom. We focus on distractions. We focus on things that impact productivity. I think in the same breath, we should be looking at people that don't take breaks. Intentionally, we look for the productivity gaps, look for people that are on their device all the time. Find the machines or find the employees that work through lunch, that go from meeting to meeting to meeting, and get them some advice and some help because they're going to burn out. I think there's some logical things that we can do to use that data for employee benefits versus just looking for productivity hits.
Do you think that might feel a little? We were discussing the other week about how IT doesn't want to become corporate secret police. It doesn't want to be perceived. Is conversely could there be something kind of intrusive about even making those kind of recommendations? We see you've been working too hard is almost could almost feel as intrusive as we see you've not been working hard enough.
It could be. I think it depends on the company culture, right? You've got to do it in the right way with the right messaging. It can't be, hey, we've been watching you and we noticed this. It's got to be done through a message of help and benefit versus oversight. But I think there's a way. I'm just looking for creative ways for IT partnering with HR, partnering with the business to do things that IT doesn't or wouldn't normally do now that they've got some data. The last thing I would say is, we can be as creative and brainstorm as many ideas as we want. It doesn't compare at all to just asking them. Ask employees, what are the distractions? Like we just did the roundtable that we just did. IT should be asking employees, what are the distractions that we can help with, and start to crowdsource ideas to help them get through their day.
Oriana, it seems like we're discussing this dynamic between the pressure or the reality of being all of us always available, always on, with that need to do and deliver deep work and really enter our respective flow states. Interested in your broader reflections on this dynamic or anything we haven't touched upon so far.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of the different elements, and I just kind of want to name and summarize the fact that there are these three specific components, right? One is the tech stack. How do the tools that we have facilitate a particular way of working? Like when we have a million different pieces of software, and we've talked about how challenging this is, especially now, right? Especially in the last few years, how that's gotten worse. The second part is the sort of individual responsibility component, right? And obviously in the US, we're big fans of that. That's a big part of our culture. Like we really want to figure out how do we each individually take ownership of how we're doing this, right? Like I was saying, I have very specific settings on my phone that I have customized to not be disruptive. I have my work profile, I have my nighttime profile, like everything set up the way I know I need it in order to facilitate my ability to be present both at work and in my life. And then the third part, I think, is company culture. And Tim mentioned this, but I do think that it's so critical. And it can be hard for organizations to really be very honest about this, I think, because there's the company culture that we want to have, and then there's the company culture that we actually build in practice. So, for example, we can promote good behaviors by encouraging people to take breaks, but in a culture that rewards hustle, people still use that as a perverse incentive, right? It's going to incentivize people to not take breaks. It's going to be used as a badge of honor and merit and proof that you're the hardest worker if your company actually rewards people for not taking breaks, even if they are nominally saying, oh yes, we want you to take breaks. So I think that's really important, right? And I I think it can be really hard to talk about that frankly, because it does require a certain amount of bluntness that is not necessarily what people are willing to bring up, right? Like the people who, for example, are managing these communications don't necessarily have authority to ensure that the wrong thing isn't being incentivized, right? Those problems are owned in different places. So I think that's something that makes it a particularly challenging problem, and that can't be fixed just from one angle, right? So if you're the person who is, for example, setting the IT campaigns, you may have very good intentions, but you're working in a context that you don't necessarily control. In the same way, you might not be able to reduce the tech stack, but you can potentially start to implement policies or look for tools that might ease that burden. Like, for example, figuring out, are there ways that we can build better integrations or create automations that will make it easier to work between different software, right? Like, that was one of the big motivations for us behind Amplify, is bringing the technology to where people are already working rather than asking them to meet us where we are.
100%. Wonderful last words. And thank you so much for listening. We hope you haven't been listening as a distraction, as a way of avoiding much needed work. And if you are, well, it's over now and you have to get back to it, or you have to find something else to listen to or do. And just remains for me to thank Tim, Sean, Dina, Oriana, and of course our producers Ella and Catherine there as well. And look forward to seeing you all very soon.
Goodbye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.